Hello, this is Richard DeShay Elliott here for the Soul of the War. I'm a candidate for the House of Delegates in the 24th Legislative District, stretching from Glendale, Hillmead, down along Martin Luther King Highway to Seat Pleasant and Capitol Heights. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So let's just open the conversation up with just telling me a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, what's family life like, and are you a person of faith?
Sure. So I'm Richard Elliott. I grew up in Glendale, first born in Arizona, Sierra Vista around Fort Huachuca. Then we moved to Fort Meade. Moved into Glendale when I was about 4 years old. Went to public schools, Woodmore, Thomas Johnson, and Duval. Went from there to the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and then Johns Hopkins University. I still live in a house with my grandparents. I help them, do chores around the house, help them raise my niece and my nephew right now. And if a person of faith, my family primarily is, we go back with FBCG all the way back to my brother got baptized there like back in 2004. My family are members from Elliott's up in Glendale and the Browns down in like Suitland.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. After not winning previous elections, what keeps you going? How has your faith played a role in that? And you running for delegate?
Sure. So my main thing has been seeing what I can do for people to know that's a light, that's a spark for them, whether that be, very little things, helping a person understand the college application process, helping somebody with their homework, giving somebody in the local area political advice. I think that just offering people free public service, that's the rent to be on this earth, is my contribution to that, and that's a reflection of my faith in people and in the public service process.
Awesome. Awesome. Can you give us like the simplest definition you can do to a delegate? What is a delegate?
Sure. So a delegate is responsible for going to Annapolis during the legislative session, which is from mid-January through mid-April, voting on various measures impacting state laws, representing their constituents to handle constituent services concerns, whether that be helping them apply for unemployment, helping them understand the implementation of a law, helping people have their concerns addressed. And I think most importantly, being the local representative for politics to get things for people in their lives. I'm not going to say that's what every delegate does, but that is what I believe every delegate should do. Being in Annapolis to vote on bills, helping people understand what they're supposed to do, and then being there for people to help them in their day-to-day lives when they need a legislator on their behalf.
Awesome. That's an awesome definition. Thank you. Can you tell us the top 3 bills that you feel the public should know about that is being voted on in this legislative session?
Sure. So the first bill, I would say, is the bill regarding the Board of Education in Prince George's County. There is a task force recommendation that has among a set of recommendations a fully elected school board. I've been in favor of fully elected school board for years. I'm supported in this campaign by several members of the school board. I think that going to a fully elected school board is the minimum amount of democratic accountability. It was also a campaign promise from County Executive Also Brooks. I do think there needs to be parts of that bill amended to ensure that there is democratic operation of the Board of Education and not the CEO or the superintendent having total control. So that's for one, the Board of Education bill. For number 2, I would say the cannabis legalization and reparations bill being introduced by Senator Carter in the Judiciary Committee. So this bill being supported by the ACLU, Leaders of Beautiful Struggle, several other similar organizations, also Prince George's County Young Democrats, we voted in favor of it. This bill would have reparations for communities that have had the highest arrest rates. It would have expungement. It would have social equity licenses, and would be, from my opinion, the most transformative equity bill on cannabis in the country. Wow. So that'd be bill number 2. And then for bill number 3, I'm going to go with the Maryland Environmental Rights Amendment, which would enshrine in our state constitution the right to a clean and safe environment. The primary benefit of that would be, let's say that you want to sue a county for putting a landfill next to your house, or for otherwise perpetuating environmental racism. That would give you a much stronger claim in a state court and in any kind of court to get redress for damages under state constitution. So those are the 3 bills that I think are a primary focus for this legislative session. And we have already gotten the Prince George's County Young Dems Legislative Affairs Committee all on board with those unanimously.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that breakdown. And I really appreciate that. Thank you. what do you feel has been your top two biggest challenges while running for office?
Sure. So number one would be time management. Anybody who says that they can conduct a campaign and live their regular life, I think that they're either not running a real campaign or their campaign is their life. There's no real in between. So time management. I've tried to take breather periods because I do know, as is going on with multiple local elected officials currently who I'm wishing the best for. Campaigns are hard, they're rough, not just physically, but mentally on the people around you. It makes you have to focus on a very particular set of things. It makes you not focus on other things. So for that, I've tried to, take rest periods, tried to work with other campaigns, tried to do other things outside of my own to make sure that I was able to stay balanced and grounded. And outside of time management, of course, is fundraising. I do have a solid amount of cash on hand, over $16,000 cash on hand right now, which is,
Awesome.
in my opinion, enough to conduct the type of race I plan to run. But even still, raising money is very time intensive. You still have to beg people for it. You still have to have a lot of expertise to do it. And most importantly, you have to have viability in order to keep getting it.
Absolutely.
So I have been lucky enough that people deem me a viable, credible candidate and have been donating to me. And I now have the cash on hand to where I think I could go to election period and I'll just spin myself to zero, and I believe I'll be able to win the race.
Awesome. Do you plan on doing sample ballots?
So I don't have what I would call a sample ballot. I have I have a sheet that does have multiple other candidates, but unlike the other sample ballots, one, it's not funded by developers. Two, other candidates other candidates have not input money for it. Number three, it highlights a wide variety of issues such as fighting over development, such as campaign finance transparency. So for the sample ballots, which I'm going to go into the history of in a moment,
Oh, yes.
this is not a quote-unquote District 24 leadership sample ballot. It's what I call Elliott's endorsements to improve quality of life for Prince George's, focused on about 12 or so different issues and with candidates who I've aligned with in the past on a wide variety of things. So it is not just this is my clique and this is who I'm going with. This is a team I have worked with in campaigns, in public service, given advice to, have helped me and my family in life, and I'm running with that ticket. So these are choices I have made in the people who I'm supporting because they've shown me their hearts, they've shown me their conviction, they've shown me that they care about representing the entirety of the 24th district.
Thank you. Can you also give us that breakdown, that history lesson
Sure.
into sample ballots here in Prince George's County and throughout the state of Maryland?
Sure. So sample ballots, as we're referring to them, are a endorsement sheet, one could say, that lists a wide variety of candidates, the offices they're running for, and doesn't really have issues or why you should support them. It's just like you could call it a collection of baseball cards. These have been used going back into the 1970s. Arthur King was elected to the House of Delegates in District 24, District 25 in 1966 in the Civil Rights Movement. He was able to be elected as the first African American outside of Baltimore City by running a grassroots campaign. When he chose to run for state senate in 1974, they used a sample ballot where they elevated Tommy Broadwater, the now renowned attorney, lobbyist who owns the mansion in Upper Marlboro. They were able to get Tommy Broadwater elected over Arthur King because they were able to use these sample ballots and get literature to a large number of voters and basically run a more efficient operation than any state senator would be able to run. So these have been used in varying capacities ever since. And I expect that in this election cycle, they're going to be used by not just individual tickets, whether that be District 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, or 47, but also individual legislators and individual county candidates are going to have their own different sheets about who they're supporting and why. And that's why I say that mine is not a sample ballot. I'm highlighting issues that we are all running on and all agree on from governor on down, so that when people look at that ticket a year after the election, they can say, did they do this? Did they do that?
Awesome. Awesome. You can wrap up right there. Just kidding, but my goodness. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
And to add one last piece that's very important is these were popularized, you could even say standardized, by former Senate President Thomas Mike Miller from the 27th District, along with current Congressman Steny Hoyer. Now that Senator Miller has passed, and now that Congressman Hoyer is more so focused on congressional races around the country, I believe there's going to be a wide amount of dysfunction regarding this, even the standardization in design, let alone in who will be on them, how they'll be funded, and a lot of other different little pieces. So I felt incentivized to make my candidates known in advance so people wouldn't call it a sample ballot.
I had no idea Steny Hoyer had any involvement in sample ballots.
Yeah, so if I wish I could show you some of them, but if you go to any of the ones received in the 2018 cycle, images are available of them online in a few videos, along with on Google News. You go to the paid for. Steny Hoyer, or if there's a Senate election, you know, Ben Cardin or Chris Van Hollen, they're generally at the top because they're pitching in the most money, given that they're the highest ballot candidates. They have the more money to throw in. So if you look at on a ballot for the paid for, the authority line, as we call it, that tells you who paid for it. My authority line says paid for by Richard Elliott, in design inspired by a former governor candidate. So I didn't feel like I was, copying a trademark. But I think that there's going to be a lot of different people using them, and I actually think they're going to start spreading outside of Prince George's this cycle because so many people are curious what's going to happen in this governor's race.
So great news to know. Keep an eye out for those sample ballots that come in the mail and throw them directly in your recycling bin.
Right. Right.
Thank you. Thank you for that. What will you do if elected to address the pay-to-play concept here in Prince George's
Sure.
County?
So I think you ask anybody that knows me, I don't take money to do things. I do things out of conviction, out of benefit for other people. I am not taking, and in fact, it lists on my literature, I am not taking a dollar from developers, from lobbyists, or from the police unions. I think it's very important for people to know in politics, whoever pays you feeds you.
Yeah.
And people work on the behalf of those folks. It's well known, I'd say, among the Annapolis crowd, even among candidates who are running against people who I support. They don't reach out to me to ask, what can I do to move you? Because people know that I operate based on what's best for my constituents. So to address pay-to-play outside of not taking money myself, of course, is I would strongly support ethics laws in Annapolis that make it so that there's a longer time period in between being in leadership and being a lobbyist. Having term limits for leadership so that a lobbyist can't just have a relationship with a committee chair that can last decades and makes that lobbyist into a millionaire and imperils public good. And otherwise doing things that have transparency over where the money's coming from, but also putting more gaps in the relationships between lobbyists, developers, I call them the political money people, and politicians.
Now, I do have two follow-up questions with that. So, with the developers, right? What impact would you say that their hand being involved in politics has had thus far on the county overall?
Incredibly detrimental. Developers are responsible for, among other things, building communities, and this is not to insult any new folks in the county, but without building new schools, new parks, new firehouses. We are still, in many ways, the same county at infrastructure we were about 20 years ago, but with another 100,000 people. Many of them people who are moving from other parts of the country or moving out of D.C. So we have the developers, I think, are widely responsible for not investing in the communities and also for taking jobs from the community. Example, in the construction of National Harbor, they specifically removed local hiring prescriptions so that jobs that create and sustain a black middle class in government construction, in maintenance, and those type of things have deliberately been undermined by the same developers that are overbuilding homes and not building schools. So developers, I think, have had a hugely detrimental impact. I'm not taking any of their money. I'm not going to introduce bills on their behalf. And I've distributed literature outright declaring I am not going to support overdevelopment. But to address for people who think, is he just anti-development, I will encourage community development grants and investment from private and state actors to do things like repairing and tearing down burned down buildings so that we can do things that are actually productive. Taking these shuttered storefronts and turning them into recreation centers, into restaurants, taking the things that we have that are already infrastructure, making those into use, not cutting down more of our beautiful forests and cutting down and ruining our beautiful parks and worsening our air quality, all for the benefit of developers that don't even live here.
Hey, Richard. Thank you. Wow. Next follow-up. You said that you're not taking any police union endorsements, right? So I know you're not anti-police, right? But
I'll give some county history.
okay.
In Prince George's, we've actually had municipal police departments, especially in Glenarden, as one of the main selling points to get people to move here. It's been widely known, and it's not a theory, it's a fact, and federal courts agree. Prince George's Police Department has rampant corruption, rampant brutality, rampant issues of cronyism, and of not promoting and hiring black officers. These are incredibly big issues that go back decades. So the municipal police departments, like in Glenarden and some of the other places, actually serve for the community to feel like they're actually with community members. So that's me actually saying that most of the police interests, like around FOP, whether that be the sheriff's department or the Prince George's Police Department, are so enmeshed in brutality, corruption, in the same sort of pay-to-play and other government waste issues that I would be lying to my constituents to say that I think they're good faith actors. However, I do want to work with, for example, the National Black Law Enforcement Organization. Their name's something like that, because they've been really, really good entity. Them and the National Latino Association in addressing the problem within the department of black and Latino officers never being able to be promoted and being given the most dangerous shifts. And I'm also supporting a sheriff candidate because I believe that the sheriff's department can help with pedestrian safety, with traffic safety, with accountability on the police department, and also on making sure that people know who they can contact. With right now at PGPD, you go anywhere in the county, it could be anybody. But
Absolutely.
if you know in the sheriff's department, hey, I have a problem, and let's say that the officers, have a hoodie with a number on the back and a name. Officer number 63 helped me in the past. Can you send Officer 63 to help me and my family? We have a relationship. Those are the kind of things where I know that people knowing who's talking with them helps a lot of stuff. The sheriff is also responsible for evictions. I don't think anybody should be evicted, period. Housing is a human necessity. You need it to live. It's not even just a right. You need it to live or you will perish. Yeah. If the sheriff's office stopped evicting people and focused on protecting people who are doing stuff like at crosswalks, had people in safety vests in front of the most dangerous 50 intersections in the county, how much safer would everybody be? How much more would people feel government's working on their behalf?
Well, realistically, I mean, people have to get their money, right? So
Right.
these landlords that own these buildings, they need their money. So, I mean,
Right.
what is the resolution to that when
Sure.
it comes to
The American Rescue Plan money is the biggest part of it. From at least the folks I've talked with, Angela Alsobrooks has been better on distributing it than some other folks, but there was never a county-wide effort of taking retired accountants, taking the school system, taking even the landlords, and making sure people knew how to do the paperwork in order to get the federal money. And that's another really, really important thing I'm running on. We have a lot of federal money that we get that I think we give back because of just government waste. Think about all the money from Head Start under Rashawn Baker that we had to give back because they weren't running the program well. And if we got all of the federal money we were entitled to get, we wouldn't have to tax people as much in the state.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, so I also did notice on this endorsement list that you did not select anyone for the county executive race on there. Do you have an idea on who you're supporting?
Sure. So I am supporting Ms. Tanya Sweat for county executive. She is simply not on that ballot because my opinion for the ballot is it needs to be people who've generally been on the ballot before or people who are running for races where in my area I can guarantee they're going to get votes I'm not going to get. I'm supporting Ms. Sweat, though, because she, again, is a PTA mom. She's shown her concern for advocacy and organization in the county, and she's shown that she is accountable on development. She has been pressuring for these new schools that are being made under this really awful
P3?
Yeah, P3,
Oof.
private-public partnership that's only ever been done in Canada, never in the United States. She's been pressuring to make sure they don't cut down trees to build the schools. So Ms. Sweat has been a really good partner, and we've gone out to numerous events together. She has talked to people on my behalf. I've talked to people on her behalf. She's come out in my neighborhood to knock doors. Why am I not supporting Angela Alsabrook? She's gone back on too many campaign promises.
Okay. With two different African American candidates on the ballot for governor, why did you select Peter Franchot?
So why am I supporting Comptroller Francho for governor? Me and him have a long-standing relationship going back to at least 2018. He has been the only person to do several very, very important things. For example, a lot of folks wanted Marianne Lasanti to resign, to leave on her own accord. Comptroller Francho was the only individual, and he's a statewide elected official who called for her to be expelled. The woman who referred to District 25 as a
Yes.
N-word district. There have been a lot of little issues like that where he has been the best faith partner I've had in doing state politics and making sure my constituents know what's going on. He runs a good office. The comptroller's office is the best comptroller's office in the country. You get your tax return back in, what, 10 days? I've already gotten my tax return back. I haven't gotten it back from the IRS. He's shown a very, very critical concern on administration hiring. The governor is mostly responsible for running the ship of state, getting the best people in there. He's shown me that for a lot of the people who are supporting him are showing even that they have a confidence in him to win the primary and the general, to be a very good governor, and to focus on a lot of issues. For a lot of the bills that I'm introducing as a fairly progressive candidate for delegate, he's running on them as well. Pledges of universal broadband, of local hiring, and of creating industries in the state, of having the lieutenant governor be a person that's highly involved in the running of the state government. In public safety even, I think that he has the most progressive public safety platform, ironic. So Comptroller Francho has been a good friend to me. Comptroller Francho has the support of all of the mayors in my district. Comptroller Francho has the support of many of the other young politicians in the state. And I truly believe that with Comptroller Francho as the governor and with me as the delegate, we'll be able to work together to do great things, not just for District 24, but for Prince George's County. Because the governor has so much power in our state over budget.
Yeah.
I might have to do a bill if there's a governor, I'll call them Governor X, that's not Francho. I might have to do a bill to get bus shelters in the wealthiest black district in the country. Governor Francho's in, I might just be able to ask him for it from the budget. And then I can spend my time in the legislature chasing down bad bills instead of having to work myself to death doing good bills. So there's a lot of things that are, again, it's not about me. It's not about who I think is the best. It's about who's best for my constituents. And Francho has showed me his heart, his staffing, his ability time and time again. And by choosing Monique, who has been an incredible councilwoman, in my opinion, on issues relating to public safety, development, and flooding, and showing that Francho respects the black middle class as a constituency, because the black middle class only exists through government existing, really. And that's what he's showing to me, that he is going to have a administration that will bolster and grow the black middle class when around the country it's shrinking.
Awesome. Awesome response. Thank you for that. Now, just to follow up a little bit on that, though, when you talk about like the confidence behind him being able to get through the primary, right? And then winning the actual general election. So would you say that race kind of plays a role in that when it comes to people being elected statewide?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Race does, and race and gender both do incredibly. This primary is unique for Maryland in that usually we don't have a contest for the Democratic primary for governor. Usually it's more or less anointed, going back decades. We also have openings at the comptroller and AG level. All three of these becoming open at the same time hasn't happened since the mid-'80s. So that adds its own phenomenon. Black voters among different economic classes and also with different work situations. PG folks that work in government, I think on their own individual level, vote more so for what's good for them for governor, rather than who their senator says to vote for. Compared to like in Baltimore City, where I think that the senator's endorsement is essential for this governor's race. So that there's a huge impact in that. That said, however, there is quite a bit of nuance given that Comptroller Francho won statewide against arguably the most popular elected official in Maryland state history, Don Schaefer, on the strength of the black vote in Prince George's primarily. Whereas there's other elected officials, namely Wes Moore, John King, who've never been on the ballot for black voters ever to test them. That said, this is going to be the most interesting gubernatorial primary maybe ever. Anybody could, or any of several candidates could still win. Any of several candidates could still come in last. Any of several candidates could parlay this run into running for Congress, U.S. Senate, county executive, a variety of other things. So I wanted my constituents to know early through my choice, I'm choosing who I think is the best because they agree with my platform. Pete saw that platform, which includes, remember, we're talking about a 74-year-old white boy. It includes on my platform to bolster black history curriculum in this state at a time when we have anti-CRT in the country. He saw that platform and he said, wow, I'm ready to go. That means something to me. Wes Moore has still never reached out to me. Rashawn Baker has still never reached out to me. Francho, I have his campaign office, his chief of staff, people that work for him, himself, people on his campaign, all accessible. My constituents need access in a crisis.
Awesome. Awesome. And I do want to note that I have not officially selected who I am voting for governor, but I was just curious because, you know, after having Tim on here, he informed us that there has never been a black person elected statewide independently. So, you know, not trying to, you know, push the pro-black agenda, but
go for
I mean,
it.
no, but I say I agree. You vote for the right person, regardless of skin color. But I will say is that I do want to change that narrative, right? But
and to go further off for that, that's part of why I'm supporting Tim. Tim, I don't live in Bowie, but I live close. I call Tim my mayor. My grandpa calls Tim our mayor. He's the first black mayor we might have ever had, basically, in my family's history. I really respect from his life story that he knows how to make government work. That is his life story for himself, his family, and his community. I think that he will have much more of a concern on black minority, women-owned businesses, on preventing overdevelopment, and basically on the anti-corruption. What are you going to sway Tim with? You going to offer him $1 to do something nasty? Tim's not going to take the money. So anti-corruption is a major theme in this election, and for both Francho and Adams, that's a major impetus for me supporting both of them. I believe they are both very strong anti-corruption candidates.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, because you taught me something in this conversation. So thank you. What can you say you can do as delegate to change that narrative to see more people of color elected independently throughout the state?
Sure. So, I mean, I can just go off of the things I've been doing for the past several years. I helped to elect the youngest African-American and the youngest ever person in Annapolis city history, Alderman DeJuan Gay, who has endorsed me, was elected at, I believe, the age of 24 to the Annapolis City Council in a special election. I've helped so many young candidates around the state, given time, energy, because I know that with our generation having seen so many different failures, but also the folks that are just slightly younger than us being in such a bad position, still being in college or high school, or still being in school under COVID, not really knowing what's going to happen thereafter, that we have a real need to step up immediately. So I've already been doing that, not just young people, but just black folks, brown folks, younger people, left-leaning candidates, independent candidates around the state, because we have a real opportunity to truly reform the democratic process in Maryland. With the tri-member districts, you really can elect a good delegate if people really in the community put their efforts behind it. And that's a major reason why I made an endorsement sheet so early to help get a bunch of other good people elected and not just make my campaign about me. A delegate is not that important. But from governor on down to county council is very important.
Awesome. And I don't think I asked you, because you did speak on the sheriff race a little bit. Who are you supporting for sheriff?
I'm supporting David Grogan.
Okay.
Mr. Grogan has been, again, very accessible to me and on the important issues of stopping evictions where they're not needed, or at least making sure people know where they are, installing traffic lights, installing stop signs. Pedestrian and traffic safety are essential, and they're things the sheriff's office can actually start doing immediately.
Awesome. Thank you for that. If elected, what would be your top 3 priorities, and what would be the first bill that you introduce?
Sure. So I believe the first year I probably would not introduce any bills, to be frank, because they don't encourage you to. I don't think the speaker would allow it to pass. That said, I'd probably try and get bills done through amendments in a lot of other people's legislation. What would my priorities be? Number one, the Green New Deal for Maryland. We need to take as much of the energy infrastructures we have in the state, make it for public use, make it not for profit, make it so that people have energy at minimum waste year round, so that people aren't freezing in the winter, so they're not melting in the summer, so that people really have energy and we can create a lot of middle class jobs in that process. So I call it the Green New Deal for Maryland. You can call it the Public Energy Plan. So second to that would be around transit. Right now, we need to do a general study of the state about where there are and are not bus shelters. Fairwood, very wealthy community, doesn't have bus shelters.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of places where we need to add bus shelters, where if there are bus shelters, we need to add seats. Where there are bus shelters and there are seats, you need to add glass or, the panes that tell you when the bus is coming, etc. And to pair all of that with changing the CSX tracks. CSX does freight, so they ship generally coal, gas, other fossil fuels through the state on freight-only tracks. If we had some modicum of control in them like they do now in Virginia, we could take those tracks and we could have a Bowie to Laurel shuttle that takes 10 minutes, and you can go directly from Bowie to Laurel on the CSX tracks. Taking as much of the existing transit infrastructure as we have to make it as low cost as possible, hopefully fare-free, union, good jobs, and as frequent and good service as possible. So I said Green New Deal, and then the transit, and then finally will be around an economic bill of rights. I said before to put the environmental aspect into the Constitution. We need to put the right to unionize into the state constitution, and not just the right to unionize, but also making it more known. People support financial literacy classes. It should be a litmus test that in financial literacy classes you're taught not just how to file your taxes, but also what the benefits are of being in a union, what the examples of unions are, what the different workforces are around you, what industry there is to get into, what it pays. So there's a lot of these little things where people are proposing ideas that are finally gaining traction, making sure those ideas have teeth of enforcement is going to be the big thing. I know how to write legislation. I have all my bills on my website, richformaryland.com. You can go and look at a full-on bill ready for introduction about how it'll be funded, who will be implementing it, who will be reviewing it, where it's going to be allowed to be done, etc. I've had years of experience of this, working back with, for several different legislators, Senator Carter, Delegate Stewart, and several others to help them with bills. I've given amendments to legislators. I know this process, and I want to use that process to sneak amendments into bills that do good things for Prince George's and sneak amendments into bills that stop bad things for Prince George's.
Awesome. And I think that is really important on speaking to the fact that you actually know how to write legislation, because so many people actually are running for the position or in the position and don't know how to write legislation.
Right.
So that is major in
Right.
itself. Can you break down to us how a bill becomes a law within the state of Maryland?
Sure. So is this Richard doing it, or is this somebody else doing it?
No, this is going to be Richard.
Okay. So because I know how to write a bill from the perspective of who is implementing it, what state agency, nonprofit, whatever, who is going to review it to make sure it's working, how is it going to be funded, if there's excess revenue, where's the excess revenue going to go? Is it going to go in the general fund, or is it going to go into a particularized fund? How long is it going to last for? I can write all of those things direct, but for ordinary legislators, they use what's called the Department of Legislative Services, which writes your bill. However, they are only as specific as you make them. So because I can write it more specific, or even more important, get it tucked into bills being supported by legislators who I have the confidence of, there'll be a lot more ability to maybe not get the Green New Deal passed, but to do eminent domain of these coal plants so they're going to be put out of function by next year and replace them with a solar facility through a bill about, landfills. It's that little stuff that really is big, because as we've seen the past few years, so many bills go in Annapolis. It's no guarantee of anything passing, but if you can get it into a good bill, or if you can use your relationships well, you can get a lot done. So even though I am not on the quote-unquote sample ballot, the quote-unquote ticket, I actually have maybe the most support in Annapolis out of any of the candidates running in my district.
Awesome. Where can people go to find out more information about you and your
Sure.
race?
So I like to say I'm the most accessible person in the state.
You can look at it.
You can go to richformaryland.com, richformaryland.com. You can text me or call me, 301-655-2133. That's my real number. And then I'm on all social media at either Richard DeShay Elliott, 2 L's, 2 T's on Facebook, or at Rich for Maryland on Twitter and Instagram. So I encourage you to reach out to me. I'd love to hear how I can help you out and help improve our state.
This has been an amazing candidate spotlight interview today. I know for a fact that anyone that is watching this interview learned something today. So you can click a direct link to his website to view more information about him, his campaign, and how you can get involved in his race. And Rich, thank you so much for deciding to come on.
Thanks for having me.
And for just the information and the knowledge that you were able to put out today. Like, that helped me. I know it's going to help other people, and I am truly grateful for this opportunity. So thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, and I'll be back for the victory party.
Absolutely. Thank you.